Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Divine Fingerprints podcast. I'm your host, Andy Traker, and I'd like to welcome our guest today, Amy Fankam. Hi.
Hello.
So Amy and I have been friends for many, many years. We met in college at Notre Dame, and Amy was a very good soccer player, but was a first-team All-American at Notre Dame, and had a very interesting freshman season where she was off to a really great start for the Irish, starting as a freshman, and then tore her ACL partway through the season, missed a few games, and then actually played the rest of the season into the Final Four, or the College Cup, as they call it in soccer, with the torn ACL and scored a goal in the semifinals against North Carolina. And so, Amy, my first question for you is related to that. How did the ACL and then coming back, what did that teach you, that you've used in the rest of your life?
I think a couple things. First off, it's obviously difficult, right? You're having this incredible season as a team. We're, number one in the country, undefeated, all these great things. You're playing with what ends up being the Herman Trophy winner, which is like the Heisman, and you tear your ACL. And so it tells you that your season's done, right? You think everything you've worked for and everything that you're sidelined, that's it. Your journey's ended for that year. And I think in the midst of it, that's how I felt. And then, I fly back to Albuquerque and my club coach from high school, Pete Clinch, was willing to put me through a workout. And I realized kind of I could do this. But I think that really what it made me see is that what we feel in the midst of it all, which for me was kind of defeat. This is where my story ends. God had this cool twist and turn in it, right? Where I think he does make us realize that sometimes the road isn't exactly what we think. It doesn't have to end where it is. And, maybe he closes a door and opens a window, but it was just another time in my life to look back and go, oh goodness, he had a plan even then, right? Even in the midst of it, when I didn't believe that it could turn into something cool, he turned it into something bigger, into something cool, and a really fun story that I now get to tell not only my personal kids, but all the kids that I coach. It's just something that makes me more unique, which I think God is in the business of doing, right? We're made so unique. And again, just showing that there's nothing he's not capable of. He, sprinkles a little bit of, wonder and awe here and miracle there. And so I think it just goes to show, right? All of us, everyday people like myself and like you, that's what he's done for us.
Right. It feels like even with coaching and all of that, when the kids know that, it's kind of like, okay, if I'm not really hurt, I'd better be giving this my full effort, because they know you don't mess around on that kind of stuff.
Right. No. Yeah. Just, again, good stories to tell. Hopefully, good coaching points, good data marks for these kids. But no, it's just incredible. The whole thing was incredible. And looking back, it's still kind of unbelievable. My daughter recently tore hers, and I would never let her do what I just did, with the whole playing thing. But again, right, God makes all of our stories so unique. And if we're willing to take a look, we can see that.
Right. Yeah, it's funny how parenting is a little bit different than when it's yourself in the same situation. We'll talk about that a little later. You had a great support system at Notre Dame in terms of your coach and their staff, and obviously your parents from back home and high school coaches. How did that help you grow into the person that you are today?
They're incredible. You know me well enough to know that it's kind of dangerous treading, in the sense you ask me these questions. I could talk about it forever, but Randy Waldrum, he's amazing. I always talk about how I would send my children to play any random sport, ping pong in a third world country for him, because I think he's that incredible. He was a man of God. He was a coach. I don't know what his best attribute was, his humility, his ability to make everyone feel included and feel like we all had a purpose, no matter what role we were fulfilling. But yeah, being a parent now, to send your child that far across the country and just to know that they're in good hands, I think would be such a comfort. And it was for me. Kimmy Carpenter, I met one of my best friends on this planet. You and then Randy, it was amazing. It was amazing. The entire kind of environment was God sent.
Well, even for me, I wrote for the Observer and ended up being the writer for the school paper for your team. And I don't think it was very normal for the Observer writer to go to like the Big East tournament or something like that with the team and on the charter bus and all of that. But it didn't bother Randy. Got to jump in and do all of that stuff, and certainly had access that was probably not totally normal, which is kind of what I remember him for. So it's pretty cool.
He was always the more the merrier, and that's just kind of who he is, right?
Absolutely. So after college, we both graduated, and then you went and played semi-pro soccer in Fort Wayne. As I remember, that there was a pro league that folded kind of right before that. And so, it was kind of back and forth in terms of what soccer could look like after college. Talk a little bit about that and where that led you.
Sure. So I had plans. My plans were that I would graduate in 3.5 years, which you also did. and would hopefully get drafted for the professional league at the time. The league folded, as you had mentioned, so that was really no longer an option. So I thought, well, we'll kind of ride out my last 6 months at Notre Dame and get what I can out of it, and then I guess go in the real world and get a job. And so that was the game plan. And then Fort Wayne came up, and we got opportunities to play during the summers. The staff was amazing at finding us opportunities that were close, and there was a big group of us that went and played. And one of the most pivotal moments in my life, I ended up meeting my now husband at the time. And so, yeah, I got the opportunity to play with a couple of my best friends, and I guess cushioned maybe another 3 months or so until I had to become kind of enter the real world and get a job. But yeah, I met my husband. I got to play for Randy Waldrum's son, Ben. He's a blast. He's incredible. He's now a very successible coach in his own right. It was wonderful.
The odds on Jay, your husband, ending up in Fort Wayne at the same time were not real high either. You mentioned a little bit about where he came from to end up in Fort Wayne.
Yeah. So, we talk a lot about moments where looking back, you can see that God was instrumental in all of this happening. And definitely meeting my husband was one of them. He grew up in France, played at soccer academies, kind of all over France at a young age, from I think about 12 to about 17. At 17, and I've asked him, so he's okay with me sharing this, but at 17, he got in a little mischief and actually got kicked out of academy in France. And so that led him to basically coming here to the United States. So obviously growing up, you kind of have this image of this person that you might meet and you might marry. And at no point in my mind was it this guy from halfway across the world. And so he ends up coming to the United States. He ends up getting a scholarship offer to Evansville. He goes to Evansville, I go to Notre Dame, and then we end up at this same semi-pro club in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So when we talk about pivotal moments and, God's fingerprints and it's written all over it, that's one for us, right? Anytime the going gets tough for us, we just remember that if it wasn't for a split-second decision that he made back in France, our paths would have never crossed. So whatever argument we might be having, I'm sure I'm right, but whatever argument we're having, we quickly put aside and just know that obviously God had a bigger plan and a bigger purpose than we ever knew, to have our paths cross with something that was so minor but ended up being so pivotal in our lives.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been wonderful to watch that from my perspective as well. So you have 3 kids now, one in high school, 2 in middle school. It's going fast, and I get the joy of having your oldest in my office hanging out on a regular basis. So you talked about wonder and awe, and that's kind of one of the themes of the book. How has being a mom changed you?
Goodness, changes everything. It changes how you look at anything, everything. I think my faith, it's changed drastically. I've been a believer for a long time now, but you always think about the relationship of Christ and the role that Christ plays, right? It's everything. It's our salvation. That's where grace and everything comes from, is from Christ. It was important to me and amazing to me prior to having kids. But once you have kids, to then understand that someone would willingly allow their kid to be sacrificed for people that were horrible to him, it makes it all that much bigger, right? It makes it all that much more impossible. I mean, I know for sure I could never make the decision that he made. And so the fact that he's willing to do that God was willing to send Christ and that Christ was willing to do it, right? Just makes it all the more mesmerizing. I mean, it really does make you realize that no one else would go through this. No one else would do it. And I surely would not. So yeah, I think it's increased my faith a lot in that. And I think when you have kids, you start looking at every kid you coach or every kid you interact with and know that they've got a parent just like me at the end of it, right? Someone that loves them with everything in them. So maybe you give a little more grace to people. You hope that people give a little more grace to you. You pour into kids a little bit more because you just recognize how teachable, coachable all these kids are, right? Every interaction you have with them, you have the opportunity to just leave them feeling a certain way. And you sure hope that it's, encouraged and loved, but it's not always. But I do think that being a mom changes all of that. All of it. And sense of humor. I think there's lots of times in our lives where we're given the opportunity, things come up and you can laugh or you can cry and, choose joy. I think God's made that clear, right? He's got this incredible sense of humor, but we've got to be willing to see it that way. So yeah, I think it's changed me a lot, hopefully for the better.
Well, of course it does. I mean, and kind of going back to what you said with God, I think we talk about God's love and his grace and all of that, but it's those tangible examples of that and really thinking about what that actually means. When you think about the sacrifice that Jesus made, it's just not that we don't understand, but just don't maybe totally get the significance of what that looks like when you think about your from your own family's perspective. So
Right. And I don't know. I mean, we can't understand all of it, right? But I think that's why he gives us these relationships to understand it, to the best of our ability. So, like I said, I mean, there is no way. Sacrifice my kids? Heck no. Even for someone that I like and treats them well? Absolutely not.
sure.
Let alone for someone who's so undeserving as we are. So, yeah, it's amazing how he's given us examples everywhere if we're just willing to look, right? If we're willing to dig into his book and look. And
And he knows just how undeserving we all are. Yeah, we hopefully we do look for the good in people. Yeah, and then he does too, but he also knows every little thought and every little bit that makes it so undeserving.
oh, sure, exactly. And he was willing to overlook all of it, right? I mean, that's pretty incredible.
So your oldest is getting to the point of where we're actually starting to look at colleges in a couple of years. It's a little scary to think that she's already to that point, and obviously that's what I do is help all of our students with college. But back when you were searching at schools, you ended up at Notre Dame, but that wasn't necessarily, that was kind of late in the process. Yeah, how did
Mhm.
that actually come about that you ended up at Notre Dame?
I mean, shockingly, that was a God thing too, right? I started soccer fairly late. I started playing quality soccer really late. And for people that actually kind of understand the sport, I didn't play really competitive club, like a high level club until my junior year. So I kind of had this dream of playing college soccer. I didn't really know how realistic it was at the time, but my parents are amazing at wanting us to dream big and then trying to get my sister and I to remove obstacles to accomplish those dreams. So that's exactly what they did. And I had the opportunity to go to this really cool tournament. I think it was called the Orange Classic tournament in Florida my senior year. I'd kind of had a couple people interested, but not many up until that point, and had a fairly good performance. And that was back in the age of, answering machines. And I'm dating myself a bit. But, and after playing in that tournament, we had a couple days, we had extended it a couple days as a family vacation, and my parents would call and check the answering machine to see if there was any messages left. And my dad called and it was full. It was full of messages to the point you couldn't leave any more messages. And it's like, oh, wow, Amy, I mean, this is several full ride offers from top schools across the country. And so then it became a little overwhelming where you need to remember to be really grateful because there's a lot of people that would love to be in your position. And yet you start sifting through, oh my goodness, this is a big girl decision to make and the biggest I'd made at the time. And so my parents were just incredible about really helping me, kind of make a spreadsheet and think through what meant the most to me and prioritize. Was it, academics? Was it the coaches? Was it the girls? Was it geographical? What kind of really drove that decision? And then I remember when Notre Dame wanted to see me play, and my parents, them as well as I do in a lot of ways. They were very good at just kind of letting it be my decision. And but once Notre Dame was on the table, the previous year they had lost in the championship games. They were second in the country. Obviously, a very big academic institution. And I remember my dad saying, Aim, I'm not going to really give you any advice on what to do, but I think if you turn down this opportunity at Notre Dame, you might be stupid. So I think that was a strong indication for me. And then, I went up there on the visit. So you used to, way back then, you get to go on 5 official visits they'd pay for. And I went on a visit in we were actually in the weight room, and Heather Mason, which was the strength and conditioning coach at the time, they were doing a workout, and there was all these girls against the back wall, and they were in a wall sit, and they had plates on their legs. And they were doing a contest to see who would drop last, like who could hold it the longest. And there was this gal at the time, she was a senior, my freshman year, and her name was Kelly Lindsay. We called her Booth because she had like this real puffy hair. She's awesome, amazing player, national team kid. And so we're in there, and she has all these scars from all these surgeries she had. So you see these little legs, right? She's got these skinny but really muscular legs. And there's scars all up and down them. And all the girls aligned along the wall in a wall sit. And people are starting to drop. And Booth's like, give me another plate. I need another plate. And her legs are shaking. And everyone is looking at her like, oh, she's not even close to dropping. Well, then I need another plate. So all these girls are getting more plates put on their legs. And I remember after that all went down, I called my parents and I said, this is the only place where I think girls might be able to outwork me. And that's where I want to go. Like, I just knew that if I wanted to go and try to be the best I could be, that you needed to surround yourself with people that were searching for the same thing. And that's exactly what it was. And it was the culture that Randy Waldron built there. I think it's the culture that Nate Norman, still has built at that school. But yeah, so that really helped drive my decision, was just seeing like-minded individuals. And I think that drives our decisions a lot in life, right? That's why we are friends. We're like-minded in so many ways and hopefully complement each other well. And so yeah, there's my long-winded answer. It was all about a wall sit contest in a workout room.
That's funny. And that's a story even after however many years I had never heard before.
Yeah.
Because that was going to be my next question, the defining decision maker for you. I had no idea it came down to wall sits.
Wall sits.
It's divine fingerprints and everything, right?
There you go.
So now at this point, you are coaching a high school team. You get to coach both of your daughters and a lot of our other wonderful students. And the team's been very successful, winning the last 4 state championships and winning Metro this year and 2 undefeated seasons. I think that the listeners probably get the idea from that. How would you say that your time at Notre Dame has influenced your coaching style?
Oh, goodness. I think everything I do moving forward stemmed from that environment. It was very competitive. It was very documented, right? You would go in and you could look on the wall in the locker room and you would see what percentage you were in 50-50 balls, right? I remember games that, as you know, I wasn't very good in the air. And so I would go in fight for every, well, no, but I didn't really lose that 50-50 ball, coach. So you see what I did is I just held the person out of the way. Then it was a foot raise. So I got there before him. So I really think you need to change that. But it was truly from the beginning to the end. And it may seem, I don't know, kind of impossible or counterintuitive, but such a family environment in the sense that we loved each other dearly, but we also knew that every day we were fighting. We were fighting to get better. We were fighting for those spots. We were fighting for our rank nationally and for wins. And so I think that has really translated into the fact that, the girls at Hope Christian, no one will outwork them. I think they have really built in that mantra that no one will. Nobody will work harder, will put in more time, put in more hours, push each other beyond what we push each other. And yet I think that they still do it and still foster the same loving family environment that I felt throughout Notre Dame. So I think that that's the biggest thing, is that if these girls understand that God's blessed you with this ability and this opportunity to play this unbelievable game, so enjoy every second of it, but use the talents he gave you, right? There's never a day where we can't go get better. Don't squander a moment. Don't squander an opportunity. And, a good example is through this winter break, the number of girls that show up to optional fitness. I have had some staff members and, oh goodness, really, coach, already? Didn't they just finish? This is mean. And I'm like, actually, the truth behind this story is, and you know this well, that after doing all the fitness, they don't want to get out of shape. They don't ever want to feel what it's like to be out of shape again. So they came to me, can we do some extra fitness? So you throw out extra fitness and there's 15 of them, 18 of them showing up to work hard on something that quite honestly is not fun. Soccer players don't do fitness because they love fitness. Then they would just do track or cross country. They do fitness because they know that's what elevates their game. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just, I feel like I still bleed blue and gold, in the sense like we will love each other hard, but we will challenge each other every day to get better and use every ounce of talent that God gave us to get, to improve. And then the Hope girls are amazing at making sure that they sing praise. They point to where the glory's from. They make sure that everyone knows who their creator is. They make sure, they're unbelievable at that, right? Much, much more courageous and vocal than I was at that age. So yeah, I think everything, so much of it comes from Notre Dame, and then my club coaches and my track coaches here kind of developed me into what it took to get to Notre Dame and succeed. So it's amazing how everything just builds on each other, right? And if you and I can just be a small step in these girls' story, then I think we'll feel like we've been successful.
Right. How many of these girls actually went to the Notre Dame camp? I know at least a handful of them have been there.
Gosh, I think there was, from Albuquerque, 19 that went up. Hope, oh goodness, I would say at least 10, 11 went. So I think they got a snippet of it. And being around you and I think they know that this intensity comes from somewhere. But yeah, I think they're figuring it out. They continue to grow into it. And I think some of them they're kind of getting hooked on it too. They're understanding that we won't be outworked. No one will outcare us. No one will outpassionate us. I think they're figuring all that out.
You also alluded to how the girls do this praise music beforehand. And one of the things that really they did more so than we did as coaches was to get back to praying with the other team after games. I feel like it's developing a culture that's spreading. Talk a little bit about what that's been like for you as the head coach.
Sure. Coach Koulis, and he's kind of my, unofficial kind of mentor and hero a little bit, in the sense that he's incredible. He's an amazing coach, but he's a lot like Randy Waldrum in the sense that, if you have the opportunity to have a kid play for the guy, you'd be an idiot to not, right? The life lessons he tells these kids and just that impact I think he has in their faith and their walk with Christ is amazing. So I feel like the boys have always been better at it than us. I admire him and admire the program that he has. So I've kind of thought, okay, we need to emulate that, right? And then you bring in Miss Gregory, talks to our team about, how many years ago that a Hope team in our situation offered for them to join her in prayer and just the impact it made in her walk, right? So I think that we kind of took it as a staff, and then as a team, we kind of took it personal. We kind of took it as a challenge, and we kind of realized that we need to step up and be willing to be a little more courageous and encourage these girls to do so as well, right? I don't think we always know, right? Divine fingerprints, it's amazing how many you have to look back and see. You don't see at the time. So you never know the impact you make, but we've got to be brave in the moment and hope that we look back and see all of these. And so I think that's hopefully what the season was about, right? I mean, yes, we won. We collected a lot of hardware. We didn't lose the game. We had girls do incredible as far as recognition that they got, and they earned it and deserved every ounce of it. But more than anything, I think that the girls willing to really just dive in, and, Haley Sanchez taking a personal, hey, I will pray. It doesn't matter if there's 10 of us or if there's 40 of us here, right? Like, we're going to pray and be grateful. I really think that that's what this season was about. More than even the victories, more than the acknowledgement, more than the awards, more than was just the willingness for our team to say, this is what we will hang our season on. Win, loss, draw, this is what it's about. This is where the strength comes from. This is where our glory and our power comes from. And so I think that was just incredible this year. And kudos to the girls and Kukulis and Miss Gregory for being willing to share their stories and keep that alive.
When we only had one senior, as you know, and I think it was interesting in the sense of, if you think back to Dylan's junior year, we lost 2 games that year, and the second one was to El Dorado. If you would have known at that point that kid would never be part of another loss as part of her high school team, I mean, there were 37 games that she played after that. If you'd have known that in advance, it feels like it just changes so much. It's part of the beauty of life and the beauty of competition is this. Every time you go out there, there's the possibility you could win, the possibility that you could lose, and all the things you've talked about in terms of having to put this effort in and into your faith life, as well as just into the winning and losing and the fitness part. And I mean, she's we could go on and talk about her for a long time too, in terms of all the amazing ways that she contributed. But it's just amazing when you're looking back on things, when you realize those accomplishments, all those arenas versus standing in a moment and looking forward. It's just such a different perspective.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's why we need to live in the moment, right? We don't know. We don't know when a game will be our last. We don't know when, we're given an opportunity to make an impact on someone and we choose to, or we choose to ignore it, right? And no better person than Dylan, right? To get these 37 wins. And again, we talk about they're not just handed to us, right? It was her faith. It was her faith and that God had a plan and a purpose for her. And then her work to follow through with that led the team through times like that. And the willingness of the younger ones, all of them, to follow in droves, right? To show up and lift and fill whatever roles was needed of them on any given day. So no, in hindsight, it's so easy to see. And maybe we wouldn't have celebrated as much or celebrated more. I don't know, but what an incredibly blessed year we had.
Right. So to finish up, let me ask you one forward question, since we have looked back through most of the interview. What's one thing that you would say is something that you haven't done yet in your life that you would like to accomplish or like to do?
Oh, goodness. Anytime, I'd love to see, I'm just excited to see what the future holds for these girls, for these future leaders, for these believers. I can't wait to see them. And I think they're all ready, but just seeing some of the fruit of the labors that they're putting, and not even with soccer in particular, but just in general. I can't wait to see going forward the leaders that these girls are, the number of people in droves that they point towards Christ, the impact that they make on our future, right? When we talk about the mission statement of Hope, about, the leaders that we want to bring forth, these leaders and prepare them and send them forward. That's probably what I look forward to the most. And I think we have a ton to accomplish, and I want to keep doing more of what we're doing, right? More service, make sure we continue to have outreach, not inreach. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is I just can't wait to see hopefully generations affected by the girls that we're blessed enough to be around day in and day out.
Right. Well, and I think that's maybe the best thing about coaching or teaching or education in any of its forms is it can't be about you. When you are the student, when you're growing up as a teenager, or even in college, it's a lot of times about your own accomplishments and how do you get to a point of reaching your certain goals and all of that. And as adults, it's so much more rewarding in a lot of ways, I think, when you can help other people get to that point. And that's a lot of the fun, in seeing what these girls can do. And I think watching as they realize that they could do a whole lot more, especially with God, and their faith component as well, than they ever thought they could on their own.
No, I agree. And now I just got the mission statement. It just came to me just like that, Andy. Pray for, equipped, and send Christ-centered, passionate leaders to change the future. I think.
Change the world.
Change the world. I was almost there.
Everything but the last word, but you got the idea.
But yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, so blessed. We're so blessed. Dream job, so fortunate. And my hope is that, every girl that we touch, every player that we touch, right? We get some siblings that we get to impact too, but that they just know how loved they are, and that, they're loved because we're loved, because we're all loved, even though we're not really qualified to be, right? Which is kind of how we started this whole thing. So
Right. Absolutely. Well, Amy, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you joining us on the Divine Fingerprints podcast, and we hope everybody enjoyed this conversation and will join us again next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.